Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Nathan Scott. I'm the Executive Director of MassEnergize, and you are at the October Community of Practice meeting. So if this is not where you're intending to be, you can quietly sign off, but hopefully all of you are excited. We have a good lineup of speakers and presentations tonight. So we are very, very happy to have you all here after a long break. Um, so we're going to be getting started very shortly, but what we typically like to do is just start by, I want to welcome some new people. I'm guessing that we have some newcomers on the call tonight. If you are new, or if you've only joined us once or twice before and feel new, this is a community where we share ideas, information, and support. So if you've got things going on in your community you want some support with, this is a great community to offer that up. So I'm going to ask people who are new just to briefly introduce yourself. You can just, maybe take yourself off, put your camera on, and maybe just, quickly raise your hand. I'll call on you, and we'll just, let us know who you are, where you're from, and how we can best support you, or what brings you here. Yes, Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Rogers. I'm from Pelham, Massachusetts, and I'm on the Pelham Energy Committee, and we are promoting electrification across the town, mostly doing heat pump stuff.
Fantastic, fantastic, Tony. So that's great, thank you. And Tony, if you don't mind, just adding Pelham or whatever your organizational affiliation is. We do like to have, if you could rename yourself on Zoom.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, we love to know where people are from. So in addition to your name, if you don't mind, everybody, if you don't mind just putting either the town you're from or the organization you're with, we always love to have that. So
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Good.
Thank you,
Yep.
Tony, and welcome.
Thank
So
you.
yes, Fred Cunningham. There we go. Yep. And Fred, you're on mute.
Yeah, well, but
There you go.
sorry about that.
No,
Fred
no.
Cunningham, I'm from Sherburne. I'm on the Energy and Sustainability Committee and a founding member of Upper Charles Climate Action. So we're doing a lot of mitigation and trying to get ahead of this.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Fred, and thanks for being here and welcome. Gretchen.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gretchen Schultz-Ellison from Shrewsbury, and I'm part of a group called Tipping Point 01545. Nathan recently came to meet with our Sustainability Committee, which we greatly appreciate, and our climate group is hoping for the town to make a formal relationship with MassEnergize. So this is my first time here. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Gretchen. Lovely to see you again. Okay, anybody else who either is new or feels new and would like to introduce themselves, we welcome you. You don't have to, but we want to just create a welcoming space for you. So. And if not, that's also fine. I'll give you all 15 more seconds to anybody who would like to introduce themselves. Yes, Michael.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Versace from National Grid, part of the implementation team for our low-income program. So here tonight to talk a little bit later on about our income-eligible programs and what we provide for our customers. Nice
Fantastic.
to meet you all.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Michael. Oh, yes, Nicole.
I'll just introduce myself quickly. Nicole Cooper. I'm also with National Grid, and I'm here to speak a little bit later about our income eligible programs with Mike, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you. And it's great to see so many faces, some of you new, some of you old, or familiar, I should say. So it's a pleasure. So we're going to start off with just a few announcements, a few updates, things that we've been working at here on MassEnergize, and then we're going to have some really dynamic speakers and presentations for you. So the first one, hopefully everybody has heard about the Youth Climate Solutions Challenge that we are running at MassEnergize. I hope everybody's heard about it. We do have, we've been sending out some emails. And really what it is, this is a new initiative that MassEnergize is doing to engage youth and start building up youth leadership to support clean energy, the clean energy transition. One of the things that we've heard from many of our communities is that they are having trouble either reaching out to the youth, working with the youth, or in some shape or form wanted some help with engaging with youth. And so those of you who've been to our annual conference know that we always have a youth session with some tips and advice on how to engage or how to work with youth. So this is kind of a next iteration of that. And we are running a challenge for high school students across the Commonwealth to take part in a clean energy challenge where teams are going to be competing against each other for creative and innovative ways to engage the community. And I'm slowing down and emphasizing that, engage their communities in taking clean energy or climate action. And one of the requirements, and this is something I want all of you to know, one of the requirements is that the high school students have to work with a community organization, a local community organization. So in most cases, that will be you. Now, it doesn't have to, you don't have to do anything really except to help support and advise the students. And we're hoping that it's going to build some more bonds, build some more relationships between the community organizations and the high school students in your communities. So I'm just going to very quickly show you the website. If I can, let me just be sure I've got that. If you haven't had a chance to look at it already, it's a page on our MassEnergize site. And this is what it looks like if you haven't had a chance to see it. So very quickly, I'm not going to take time to go through it, but here it is on the MassEnergize site. It's the Youth Climate Solutions Challenge. We have a program overview, and then we have several kind of navigation buttons, FAQs, information sessions, and learn more. So what we're hoping and requesting is that you share this with anybody who you know at the local high school, or any students and or teachers and or any organizations that are engaged at the high school, because we're still looking for more high schools to join us. We do have several. And so shout out to Concord Carlisle and Lincoln Sudbury and several of the communities. And we also have we have a high school team from Lowell, and several communities have already joined us, but we are certainly open and looking for more. So yes, please do share that with any contacts you have at the local high school. Okay, so moving on, the next piece that I want to share a little bit about is talking about our social media magic kit. As you know, we've been working also hard over the summer developing some social media tools, and I'm going to pass it to my colleague Megan to say a little bit more.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. And welcome. Like Nathan said, we have been busy, which is great. And I'm just going to do a quick overview. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh,
I mean, what we see multiple screens on your desktop, Megan.
Let me try again. Share my screen. Let me just try this one. How about that? That one?
Yes, but now if you can make it full
Okay, great.
size.
The slideshow. So just to, I'm giving you the briefest of updates because I know many people are already engaged with us, and we're happy to have further conversations with everybody about what we're up to. But we continue to onboard communities to our social media magic tool, which is where we are providing content directly to your website or directly to your social media channels. Without your having to do much. You can do much, or you can just let them go. Here are a couple that we've done this past week. Talking about the new discounted heat pump rates. And I will say that if you are in a municipal light plant community, we are sending you a different heat pump or a different post for a day like today. So even though you're not in our, this might not pertain to you, we are having a separate set of posts for MLPs. And then this was another one. Don't bag your leaves, leave the leaves, and why, the reasons why. So very excited to be delivering some of this content. What else have we been up to? Last week we had a social media training session for members of our community. We learned how to do videos in Canva, taught people about bit.ly links and how to use them and why you'd use them, when to pay for them, when not to pay for them. We talked about Linktree, and we also looked ahead with what's new for our website and MailChimp. And as you may have heard, we are working on a transition for our website to WordPress. Very excited about it. We're working on the finishing touches of it. We're developing the training of it and the training materials so that when we're ready to go, you'll have a lot of resources for you. We're going to practice with a couple communities and then onboard a couple more, and then we will continue to cycle through and get everybody onboarded. I have to tell you that personally, I'm very excited about how easy the interface is. I was a little worried, but it is a very nice, the website will look like what you have now, and the interface to make changes to it is very intuitive and easy. So we're very excited about that. So a lot going on with MassEnergize, and stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Great. Good. Okay. Thank you, Megan. So yes, and now another kind of update and reminder of some upcoming excitement. I'm going to pass it to Joe to tell you a little bit about the planning for our April 8th Community Climate Leaders Conference. Joe.
Trying to find the unmute button. Good evening, everybody. Megan and I are currently working hard behind the scenes to bring you the third of the MassEnergize Community Climate Leaders Conference. So that will be taking place April 8th on 2026 next year, and we'll be back again at Bentley University where we held it last year. That worked really well for us. It was a really great space. We had lots of diverse program there, so we're really excited to be back there again next year. We're currently working with our steering committee, a few of you on the call here tonight. We really appreciate all your help with us getting ideas flowing for what we can bring for you that's different from last year and make it better each year. So we're currently working on the programming, and also in the coming couple of months we'll get the registration launched, so keep an eye out for those. And with we're currently in agenda programming planning at the moment, so we have a breakout proposal form. If any of you are interested in sharing ideas or wanting to lead a breakout, I'm going to pop a link in the chat for you to submit a proposal, or feel free to send on to somebody who you think would be really good at presenting at the conference and sharing their wealth of knowledge. So yeah, very excited. Save the date, April 8th, 2026 at Bentley University for our third Community Climate Leaders Conference. Okay,
fantastic. So we have one more kind of announcement, and then we're going to go into kind of our program for this evening. Is Uzona here on the call? Did Uzona join us? Uzona? Okay, well, I don't think Uzona is going to be able to, or he was able to join us. He is the founder of an organization called Terawatt Energy, which some of you might know. And they're in the midst of developing a very, very fun, powerful new tool to help with solar, kind of the whole process of, I was hoping he was going to describe it, but basically they're automating the process of getting these solar evaluations of houses. And they're really streamlining the process. They're going to make that whole solar sign-up process, the whole section of things that need to happen before the installers actually make the install, doing the assessment and doing a variety of things. They have a very, very interesting new tool that they're going to be piloting, and we are going to be helping with that pilot. So Uzona was going to tell you a little bit about what they're doing, but you'll, I'm sure, hear perhaps at another community of practice. So Terawatt Energy, who are really doing some interesting work with getting the whole preparation process. I'm sure there's a name for it that I don't have quite now, in terms of all the solar assessments and all the pre-work that has to be done. So, okay. So that's all of our announcements. There will be time at the end for people to make other announcements and or ask questions. But what I want to do tonight, what I want to do is share a little bit about another interesting project that we've been involved with. And we are excited, MassEnergize is excited to partner with MCAN and Green Energy Consumers Alliance, along with a professor at Bentley University, Zana Cranmer, who you're going to be hearing from very shortly. And it's being called the Climate Tracker Tool. And what it does is it fills a critical need to enable communities to see the progress they're making in terms of clean energy residential actions, where we already have good state data. But what Zana and her team have done is kind of consolidated a lot of this data. So we want to be able to make that a lot more accessible. So we're lucky to have Zana with us. And Zana, we are very pleased to have you present tonight on the Climate Tracker Tool. So thank you, Zana.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. So as Nathan mentioned, I'm a faculty member at Bentley University. I teach in our sustainability program there. I also, like many of you, do sustainability related work in the community where I live. And so that's part of what inspired this endeavor. Also a data nerd, so I always wanted to look for ways to try to use the skills that I have, things that I like to do anyway, and try to make things easier for other people. So that's part of the inspiration for this. Let me share my screen really quick. We'll go through a couple of quick things, and then I'll demo the tool that we put together. So there's two tools that live in one site. So there's the Climate Goals Tracker and the Greenhouse Gas Inventory tool. So I'll start with one and then the other. So we'll start with the tracker tool. So there's a collaborative effort, as Nathan mentioned, between myself and 3 different climate organizations, so MCAN, MassEnergize, and Green Energy Consumers Alliance. And as I mentioned, the goal is to take, all of this data and the goals of the state and try to make it easy for communities to see where they are on these 3 different metrics that the state has set targets for 2030. And give communities a sense of, what targets might work for their community based on sort of where we are for the state and then where we need to get to. And then the greenhouse gas inventory tool allows you to either run for the first time or do some updates. If you've used the MAPC spreadsheet tool to do an inventory for your town, it uses the same methods in order to come up with an estimate for a greenhouse gas inventory. So we'll update this as new data becomes available, as new elements to the site become available. And then the link to that is right here, right? So maghgi.tool.streamlit.app, Climate Goals Tracker, and we'll start there. So let me share my browser so you can see. So if you go follow that link and get to that part. So this is what the page will look like, right? So it's right here too, if you want to grab the URL that's up there at the top. So the different participating organizations, their logos are here across the top, and then there's a sidebar over here to get to different parts of the site. You can close that or open that depending on what you want to do and how much of your screen you have to work with. Right, so the Climate Goals Tracker just starts with a little bit of background on what we're trying to do. The state has set targets for 2030 for adoption of electric vehicles, adoption of heat pumps, and adoption of solar panels. And so this, we developed over a series of meetings between the 3 organizations, a way to take those goals and where the state is as a whole, and then apply that to each of the communities across the state, right? So the default when you go in is Massachusetts, and then you can change that to whatever community you'd like. I use Sudbury as an example. So you can just type in, or if you want to scroll down the list, depending on where you are in the list, typing or scrolling might work more efficiently for you. And then it will adjust all of the numbers that are here to that particular community. So here in the case of Sudbury, so there's based on the data that we have as of the end of 2024, 1,188 passenger electric vehicles. So the tracker tool is just based on residential adoption. So we're not looking at commercial adoption or industrial adoption or anything like that. For any of these technologies, there are about 500 heat pumps installed in Sudbury. So that's 500 accounts or homes with at least one heat pump installed. And then heat pumps includes full or partial displacement for HVAC. It also includes hot water heat pumps. So any and all types of heat pumps are included in that number. And then the number of kilowatts of residential solar installed, as well as the number of households are in there somewhere. So it's got each of the different statewide goals for each of those three technologies. And then what Fred Davis from NCAN did was say, okay, where are we as a state, right? Where are we going in 2030, right? How much additional needs to be added for each of those three technologies each year? And then how much of that is a percent of where we are currently? So for electric vehicles, that's an additional 90% of where we are now each year from now through 2030. For heat pumps, that's about 50%. And then for solar, it's about 10% additional new adoption, new installments each year between here and 2030 in order to meet the statewide goals. And so that percentage growth is applied to each community for each of the technologies. Right. And the latest year of data available for each of the technologies is a little bit different. So hence you have different years for sort of where that baseline is taken. And as we find or get better data, we'll update that to include that. So for in the example of Sudbury, there's about 1,188 electric vehicles according to the statewide vehicle census from the MassDOT, right? And so the goal that they would need, so the idea is that so each year another 1,070 or so electric vehicles get added to the fleet in Sudbury of passenger vehicles. Right, they have about 500 heat pumps, so we'd be looking for another 250 installs each year. And then for solar, so it's 327 households with solar, so we'd be looking for an additional 36 households to adopt solar. Right, and so then below this table, there's definitions for what's included in each of those three. I talked a little bit about heat pumps. Electric vehicles includes all electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And then solar, again, this is not community solar. This is not some of those large ones. This is just the residential solar installations. Maybe in a future iteration, we'll think of a way to work with some of those other types of solar installations as well. Where the data is coming from, so heat pump data comes from MassSave, so there's sort of a lot of asterisks that come with that data source. So communities that don't participate in MassSave, right, aren't included in the data. Communities that are smaller and therefore might have less than 100 accounts with a heat pump we're also not going to have data for that. So we've made some assumptions for the sake of the tracker in this case around that, but we don't have data. It's not included in the data set, unfortunately, for those communities at this time. You can also take a look at statewide numbers and where those fall, right? And then if you want to get into some of more of the nitty gritty of the methodology, that's here at the bottom of the page, as well as folks who contributed to what this page looks like. And again, we'll update it. So this is 1.0 for this tracker tool. So let us know any feedback you have on it, and we'll work on making a new version of it. So I think of everything on this site as sort of live and evolving and growing over time. So based on what people's needs are, what people want to see from it, what's most useful for folks out of it. So that's the climate goals tracker. And then, so the other piece of it, so over in this sidebar, if you open that up again, there's also a greenhouse gas inventory tool. And so this follows pretty closely the MAPC methodology in their spreadsheet tool. So it's a lot of the same data sources, right? A lot of the same methods for calculating emissions, energy consumption, and those sorts of things. And so depending on kind of what it is. Not everything that's included in the spreadsheet tool is included here, but certainly the bigger items are in there. So again, the default is just Massachusetts. Right, and then you can type in your community. And it should be updating. And of course, since I'm doing a live demo, it's acting a little screwy. And so, but we can run through what's here in any case. And so it'll give you the total emissions, how much that's changed from 2020. So the full inventory only goes back to about 2020, since the transportation data, so the vehicle census only goes back to 2020. So you can see how total emissions have changed, right? All of the graphs on here are interactive. There's also per capita on there, and then there's pie charts for different fuels that are used. Oh, there it goes. And energy use and emissions by different sectors. So residential versus commercial industrial versus transportation. And then how the energy portion of it works out as well. So that's all broken out there. Right, you can look at, again, any year back to 2020, and just depends on sort of how far back the data allows. It will go back as far as it can. So there's different tabs here across the top. So you'll come in at overview. Demographics just has line charts of population, households, and things like that. Income, I believe, is also in there. For buildings, there's a couple of big metrics that people might be particularly interested in here across the top. So mass save participation rate, that's 2013 through 2023. So it'll look like a fairly high number since it's across a very large span of time. How many accounts have heat pumps, how many households there are, and whether there's a community aggregation program in place. And so the emissions do not yet factor in participation in those community aggregation programs, but that's one of the things on my list in order to make improvements to this site. And again, all of the graphs are interactive. So if you want to look at energy consumption for different fuels in both residential and commercial, so those are broken out separately here for buildings, right? And then same for emissions, right? And then similar to the overview page, there's pie charts for different views of this data as well. And then buildings data goes all the way back to 2017, since we have data that far back and farther if we wanted to add in more than that. But the baseline year for the MAPC tool is 2017. So that seemed like about as far back as people might probably want to go. So in addition to what's in the MAPC spreadsheet tool, there's also a page here on solar adoption, right? So it'll give you the total capacity, what's the total number of projects, and this is not, in this case, limited to just residential, this is everything. So not just residential, but your commercial, if there's a community solar project, that'll all get counted here. Capacity, number of projects, what's the average size of projects in your city or town, and then just a very rough estimate of what that energy production might look like. And then there's charts over time, looking at new capacity added each year, and then I've got residential broken out separately in that case, as well as cumulative installed over time, right? So you can see kind of where there's some big projects in here. Right, and then broken out by different sectors, right? So by capacity and then by number of projects. So in many communities, just by number of projects, because there's lots of small projects, residential often makes up the largest share of the count of projects. And then by capacity, not so much, since they tend to be pretty small. Right, and that's drawing on the production tracking system, which is missing some data for particularly in more recent years, but needs to do a little bit better with older projects. So there's certainly not a perfect data set, but it's a good starting point in any case. And then for transportation, so similar here. So it's not just residential, right? This is across all sectors, how many EVs, so it's battery electric, right? Plug-in hybrids, gas hybrids, and then also how many charging stations are there according to the alternative fuels data center. So they publish a list of charging stations across the country. And then, so how many vehicles are there? So you can sort of see how growth in alternative types of vehicles is, as well as vehicle miles traveled, and how that's changing over time. And then again, energy use and emissions for each of those, right? And then similar to the other pages, right, you can kind of look at everything broken out in pie charts for the years of data that are available for it. Right. And then there's also a comparison tool. So we've got a few different metrics that if you want to look at a map and see, right, how you compare in a particular year, right, to other communities, right? And again, this is also interactive, so you can kind of hover over it and see, right, what are the per capita emissions in your city or town, and how do you compare to other folks across the state? So if you want to kind of get a sense of how you're doing compared to whoever your peer communities are, that's a way to do that. There's also an about here. So if you want more of the details of exactly what's going on inside of this, that's all there. What are some of the different data sources? So a lot of that's listed here. Again, it's if you're familiar with MAPC's spreadsheet tool, it's a lot of the same kind of stuff. And then there's also a feedback page. There's a link to a survey there if you want to give us some feedback. And I'm also happy to have folks email me if you want to share your thoughts and comments with me that way as well. Let me put that back up on the screen. So you have that. So feel free to use the survey or to send me an email with any thoughts, questions that you have. And if there's any questions in the chat, I can try to answer some of those, or however you want to do Q&A, Nathan.
Yes, there definitely are quite a few questions in the chat, but I'm also just going to ask you if you can stop sharing your screen, but we'll put your, Zana, if you could put your email just in the chat.
Yeah.
And that way, yeah, we can kind of see. So, folks, feel free to raise your hand, ask a question. But I'm going to start with a couple that are in the chat, and then I'm happy to go to folks, for a live question. Okay, so Zana, first question. In addition to one most recent year, can we access previous year's data for each measure? Not sure if that's
so depending on the data source, it might go further back or not as far back, right? So the EV data just goes back to 2020, since that's when the vehicle census starts. That's the earliest year they provide in that data set. And then mass save data, what I've put in there goes back to 2017. If there's a lot of interest in seeing data that goes further back than that, I can incorporate that. I'm also kind of looking at data that going further back from sort of more of a research perspective. So I'm also trying to look at, what are the trends? What can we see about what's happening where, and what might be working based on all of this data that I've put together. So, and also I should mention before I forget, everything's open source. So everything's available through GitHub as well, if anybody wants to really, really dig deep into what's out there.
That is great. That's great. Okay, so while folks are just thinking, if you do have a question, want to ask it live, please just raise your hand. But then here's another one from the chat. Tiana says, this is so cool. Is the town's goal proportional by population, or is it weighted in some other way?
So for the goals tracker, it's based on kind of wherever your community is presently, and relative to kind of what the state as a whole needs to do, right? So in the case of electric vehicles, right, the state as a whole needs to add 90% of the EVs it currently has on the road each year to meet the goal. And so we've just applied that percentage wherever a community is at, just 90% of wherever you are currently. So it's not by population.
Okay, great. And then another question, how often is the data updated? Is it yearly? Is it more frequent?
Depends on when new data becomes available. So I do expect at the beginning of the calendar year that additional data will become available. I think both hopefully from the census, from MassSave, and I think potentially from the production tracking system as well. It looks like they are posting and refreshing that data in January. And so once that all gets posted and incorporated, an update will also get pushed to the tracker as well, and to the inventory tool.
Great, good. Okay. Okay, next question. In the past, mass save data has been a little hard to get. Is there now a more open response from Mass Save about sharing their data in the main markets?
I'm drawing from the same stuff that's there on Mass Save, right? So they publish all the utility data. So for electricity and natural gas, and then for MLP communities, I went into the reports, the annual returns that the MLPs publish. I'm drawing on that for the utility data there. For heat pump data, that's also coming from Mass Save, and that's kind of very deep buried in the in the web page. If people want instructions for how to find that, I can share that with them, but it's someone had to tell me where to find it, so it's not easy to find.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and then you do also indicate on that sheet what the sources were. So if
Yep.
somebody were interested in a specific, like here's a person who's asking about where did the Acton heat pump data come from? I mean, that's listed on the page, right? So anybody can
Yep.
look to find out where their data set originated.
Yep. So heat pump data is from Mass Save.
Okay. Okay, we have one more question in the chat, and then I see there's a couple people waiting live. So one more question from the chat. So where can we access the tool that we listed in the chat? So the tool, but for people who have just joined us, we'll list it again. Okay, so yes, Bob Zog, what question? Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, thank you so much, Xana. It looks like you've done a lot since you first told us about this back in April at the MassEnergize conference. And I may know the, excuse me, may know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. Would it be possible, and did you consider breaking down the heat pump data by heat pump water heaters and ground source heat pumps as opposed to just one lump?
Yeah, so I looked at trying to break it out and particularly separating HVAC from other types of heat pumps. And so for a number of communities, then you fall below that 100 mark. And so it just because of that, 100 level, like the more of a lump you can make, the more communities you can include. And so it gets a little bit tricky. So you need to have either a large enough community or have a high enough rate of adoption to be able to start breaking it out. You can do that in some communities, but in a lot of them you can't.
Yeah.
So,
or maybe we can work on Mass Save sponsors to report at a little bit better granularity.
yeah, if the threshold could come down, that would be great. We get lots more data for lots of communities. There's so many missing in the data set. So
yeah. Okay, so I see Megan has a question and then Ellen Laker. So Megan.
Oh, it's more of a comment. And that is that in our new launched WordPress website product,
yes.
we're going to have a page on everybody's website that links to this information. So that will be incorporated in your website coming with our conversion.
Yeah, you can embed, so working with MassEnergize to do this, you can embed it and call the community in the URL. So if you're interested in doing that on other sites, let me know and we can point you in the right direction.
Great. Okay, yes, Ellen.
Hi, sorry, my picture's not on. Actually, it's somebody's house here, so I don't want to do too much. So Zaina, I know we're working with you. So one question is, and I'm surprised maybe Bob didn't bring this up. So we were a Heat Smart program back in, I don't know, 2017 or something. I don't know that Mass Save would have that data from those people who are programs within the Heat Smart program. Do you know if that numbers are in there or whether that's not in there? Because we had a fair amount of like geothermal, we had a fair amount of people who actually did it under that program. So I just wondered if that data's in there.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that if you use the MassSave program at all, you're probably captured in the MassSave data set. So if you used any of their incentives, if you didn't, it may not be captured in there. So I would definitely think of it as like a lower bound. There may be additional heat pump installations that just MassSave is not aware of for whatever reason. And so I think it depends on kind of whether you use the Mass Save program at all.
It'll be curious when we talk because we also had the town change their building form so that people had to check off whether when they pulled an electrical permit or whatever, whether it was for a heat pump. So I'll be curious what that data is versus the data we have and see how it matches up. Who knows? I have no idea, but it'll be curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have like, the real data versus kind of, what I'm drawing on in some of these public data sets that are definitely missing something, let me know if we can, compare and cross-reference those and see, how much of a mismatch is there in some cases and see if we can come up with, better ways to make data available.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see too. And so I'll say one last thing because we actually have on our own website, which is MassEnergize is on our website as part of our bigger website. And we actually have some graphs that show what percent we are at the goals that the state has set, which unfortunately don't look that great to me, but yeah. So I'll be curious whether we have the same thing when we see this. All right, thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, yes, Karen.
So I wanted to say thank you, Zaina, for the like the charts, your bar graphs and some of your pies are really powerful. Because it really puts it in perspective. Like you think there are a lot of EVs around, and then you see how far we have to go. And a question for MassEnergize, and this can be answered down the road, but will we be able to put some of that graphic material into the new website? But don't answer that now, but it would be really helpful to have.
So yes, I think the answer is a simple one. I think the answer is yes. But we will be working with you to be sure that you can get that data to put onto your sites.
And just to mention that Acton, we were having such a hard time finding heat pump data, but we've actually done something similar to what Harvard's doing where people now have to pull an actual electrical permit so we can track the heat pumps better. So hopefully that data will make a difference.
Good, good, good. Okay, Fred Davis.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Xana. This a great run through. I'm so glad people are seeing this. And listen, I just got an idea for 2.0 for the climate goals tracker for next version. And can I just interject that how many people got last week their email showing that the utility, well, this would be Eversource, if you're Eversource, that you're now eligible, you now will be on the heat pump heating rate. I got a letter last week. Nobody else? Okay. My point is this, that those that do have a heat pump and didn't get the letter would probably be in this category of have a heat pump but didn't go through Mass Save somehow and therefore not in the data that you can grab. I wonder if by next year the utilities would like to share at least the number of such people who slipped through that crack. They're going to offer the heat pump rate to all those people, which is fantastic. Even if it's a lower efficiency or older unit, etc. So anyway, for 2.0, and I just got this idea from listening to this talk. Thanks so much.
Great, good. Okay, yeah, any further questions, please raise your hand. We have another question from in the chat. Xana, do you think the numbers of heat pumps captured might change with the new electric rate? This kind of relates to Fred's question.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if that generates maybe another or a better, data stream through the utilities. So I don't know quite how all of the machinery behind the Mass Save data website works, but it would be nice if that sort of found its way right to there. That would be great.
Yeah, good, 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 good. Okay, any further questions for Xana or ideas about how things could be working? Yes, Catherine White.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I wondered, now that the state is doing quarterly updates for EVs, I wondered if your system will automatically update as soon as those numbers hit.
It's not automated. I try to do that. That's sort of maybe a level beyond my my coding skills. But I think so. I think I've put in there annual. If people want to see something more frequent than annual, posted on the website. And then again, at the beginning of the calendar year, I anticipate doing a whole update to all of the data that's in the website. So it will show up then at the very least, and then maybe a mid-year update as well over the summer as new data becomes available.
Yeah, of course, the third quarter was sort of special since everybody was rushing not everybody, some of us already had cars, but so many people rushing to make sure they could take advantage of the rebates. And there's still a lot of cars out there where the dealers are still offering rebates. So I was interested to see that too. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, and there's one more comment in the chat here saying, my understanding is that if you did not go through Mass Save for your heat pump, you can still call them to get the rate. I think that is, yes, Fred's nodding, that is true. So, okay. Well, Zana, thank you very much. That was a really tremendous presentation, and all the hard work that went in that you and others I know have been doing. Thank you very much for sharing that tonight. And we certainly will be making, for all the MassEnergize communities, we will certainly be making this data available on your site, but it's of course available to you now. And I'll ask Joe to put the link one more time in the chat just to make sure everybody sees it down at the bottom. So, okay. Moving on. So now, speaking of Mass Save, we have some representatives from Mass Save who are from a different, I'm guessing, I'm thinking, from a different division. So, I don't think we're going to put them on the spot to ask them about the data for the map for things, but maybe they can shed some light or give us some ideas on how we could, better find out some of the questions that were asked. But moving on, so we have two representatives from Mass Save. Mike Mike, help me with your pronunciation of your last name.
Sure. Sorry, I had to get off mute. It's Mike Rosacci.
Mike Rosacci and Nicole Cooper, and they're going to be talking about Mass Save, the low income program for both single and multifamily units. So Nicole and Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And I do want to also say we have another coworker of ours, Emily Horton Hall from National Grid, who joined us tonight. Emily rounds out our income eligible team here at National Grid. So.
Yes, and thank you for having us and for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the low-income programs. I think these are some very robust programs and offers a lot of assistance to our income-eligible population with some great energy efficiency products and services. So I think it's a good adjunct to this conversation. So again, thank you for having us. And I think we can, we're representing National Grid. But as you may all be aware, there are many utilities that are involved in Mass Save, and we try to deliver very similar services across the footprint statewide with these programs. So just to note that, and generally, the way the programs are set up at a real high level is from the single family side, which is essentially 1 to 4 unit properties. The programs are delivered mainly through community action agencies who also deliver other services to customers in addition to energy efficiency. We also have some additional partners that help us deliver within that space as well. And then, and Nicole will speak a little later with the multifamily components, and those are also delivered through the network, but not necessarily through the community action agencies particularly. So to get into it a little bit, so again, I mentioned on the single family side is essentially 1 to 4 unit properties. And, we try to provide to customers a suite of energy efficiency services, including barrier remediation, which is part of the components we'll talk a little bit about. But generally, like to be involved in the program, you need to be on the discount rate. And typically the discount rate is accessed by being eligible for a means tested benefit. So you could be eligible for fuel assistance, you could be eligible for a litany of benefits such as Mass Health or SNAP or WIC. These benefits will essentially drive the customer being able to access the discount rate, which is a significant component, because that, even the discount rate alone, allows relief off the energy bills, which is very important, in addition to what we do on the energy efficiency side. But also, if you live in a property where 50% or more of the tenants are income eligible, the entire property will be served as a income eligible or low income unit. We use income eligible and low income kind of, you'll hear that referenced in both ways, but it's essentially, we're talking about the same population of customers and the same program. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just here to give a sense of, the number of household members and the income levels that would, if you were in any of these particular situations from an income level perspective, that's a very good indicator that you may be eligible for one of the other benefits, then can then drive your access to the discount rate. So we wanted to include this here just to give a sense that some of these levels are relatively significant if you look at just the financial component, but then looking at the overall household size. And this is total household income. So again, this isn't the only driver, but this is a driver that's a good indicator of access to one of the benefits. So to talk a little bit about what's involved in the program. So, what happens is, again, through our community action agencies and some of our home performance contractor partners, customers can receive an energy assessment. And in that energy assessment, it's a couple of components. One component is that they will, the energy specialist will talk about energy consumption, overall behavioral components, and look at a customer's appliances and see if there are certain appliances that are eligible through the program. And if the customer has either older or inefficient appliances and they are ones that the program's offered, they would be offered to the customer at no additional cost to them. So that's one of the big components that a lot of our customers take advantage of. And then secondly, there would be components relative to weatherization and heating systems. So with weatherization, it's again at no cost to the customer, including barrier remediation. There are some stipulations as far as what we can do. There's, just to mention, that the program is has a very robust pipeline and a robust level of interest. So we have to look at trying to serve as many customers as possible within the budgets that we have. And in looking at that, we also have to put in guidelines that will indicate, some jobs that we may have to defer to a potential later date, and others that we can move forward on based on kind of the different conditions that are happening at the home. And then the other is the kind of the HVAC component, where we will replace deliverable fuels systems with air source heat pumps. And then also, depending on kind of the status at the time of need, meaning like if we have a customer that has emergency heating system replacement and they have no heat, for example, we may not be able to, where that customer may be eligible for air source heat pumps on like a blue sky scenario, but in that scenario, we may not be able to do that, depending on what the situation is at the home and how quickly we need to be able to get heat to the home. So there's certain things that happen around that, but in general, we're looking to move as many customers from the deliverable fuel side to air source heat pumps as possible. And so that's an important component of the program. But again, I keep stressing that it's no additional cost to the customer, which makes it it's a very robust offering to customers. But as you can see, because of that, there's also a lot of interest in the programs. And some of these offerings that we have are at significant costs to be able to move forward on. So we try to be very prudent with the budgets and serve as many customers as possible in the process. And when I talked about the energy assessment, some of the things are had like right at the time of the assessment, and those are our instant savings measures, which For the low-income customers, we're still offering the direct installs of energy efficient LED bulbs, water saving measures, aerators, shower heads, programmable and/or Wi-Fi thermostats, and advanced power strips. We will be sunsetting the advanced power strips at the end of this year, but they are currently still offered in the program. And to just talk a little bit more, I mentioned some of these things already, but when it comes to the weatherization, that would be attic and wall and basement insulation, air sealing, weather stripping. I mentioned the heating system conversions. We also do replacement of single pane to triple pane windows on non-gas heated homes. And I mentioned the replacement of the heating systems. We do the appliances, and those appliances can include refrigerators, freezers, clothes washers, dehumidifiers, and window air conditioning units. So they're all given at a retrofit basis, which basically the customer has to have an eligible inefficient appliance already, and we will replace with an efficient appliance. They're not like, if you don't have for example, if you don't have a window AC, the program cannot give a window AC. It's an energy savings program, so it's like essentially like for the most part on the appliances. We can go to the next slide. And this slide just kind of gives an indication of, as I mentioned, the delivery of the program from our community action agencies. This kind of just shows the territories in which they operate in. And there are some areas where we are dual fuel. There are other areas where we are one of the fuels and another utility is a different fuel, but oftentimes in those areas, most often they are represented by the same community action agency. They're just doing work for both utilities to basically serve the customer as a whole. And so before, I guess, well, we can do this two ways. We can either take any questions on the single family component, or we can go through multifamily and then kind of take questions at the end. Would that make more sense?
Sure. Yeah, let's see if there's any initial questions on the single family, 1 to 4 units. Yes, Fred.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all these great services that are offered. Fantastic. Can I ask, what is the thinking? Again, I'm going to bring back the new heat pump heating rate. Will bring down the cost of heating with electric heat pumps relative to gas. Will that change? Will that be a game changer for gas customers?
I mean, it potentially will in the future. We don't have, like, on our team here, we're, enabling customers because of the offerings that we have to get on that heat pump rate. Obviously, because the air source heat pump is something we have, within our programs. We're not necessarily experts on the heat pump rate specifically, but in the future, it may start to normalize against the gas rates. As right now within our programs, we are not converting gas to air source heat pumps, but it may affect that in the future. Because right now I don't have a whole lot of comments on that at this moment, because right now we're not in the low-income programs converting from gas to air source heat pumps.
Thank you. Looking forward to that next step. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good question, though.
Okay, yeah, another question from Lisa Smith. Lisa.
Yes. Our action agency on the North Shore, they are not doing energy assessments now. Is that statewide? Because there isn't funding for this program right now?
Yes, relative to energy assessments, it's right now what's happening is it's taking about from a time that a customer may contact. So there's multiple entry points into the program. From a time that a customer may make an initial request for an assessment, it's about 6 to 8 weeks before the customer is contacted to schedule from that point. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a very, very robust interest in the program, and that robust interest is causing some delays in being able to deliver the services as timely as we would like. So the energy assessments have not stopped, but they are taking a little longer to get to.
And then the other thing is that we have people, I'm an energy coach. They've had their energy assessments in like last winter, and they still haven't gotten anything done to their properties. It's taking a very long time for anything to happen to get work done on their properties.
So, I mean, without knowing specifics for individual customers, there are, as I was mentioning earlier, there are multiple things that have to be looked at when we're serving properties. And in some instances, projects could be delayed because of specific barriers that we are not able to address at this time. And then others are able to move forward depending on the condition of the home. So it's a great question and point, but there are a lot of different circumstances to the specific customer situation. So without like knowing a specific situation that we're answering to, like let me give you an example. For if a home has, say, $2,000 worth of weatherization that's in need of, but they have $20,000 in barrier remediation that needs to happen in order before that $2,000 in weatherization can be done, that's something that is currently being deferred. Whereas if the barrier remediation is essentially the barrier remediation that's necessary can't be more than the energy efficiency services that we can provide. So that's just one example of homes that may be deferred. So without knowing, without knowing specifically which customers are not receiving services and why, it's hard to answer that component, but
It's
it
pretty
shouldn't be
much
happening like that.
everybody isn't getting any work done.
Yeah, that's I think that that's not necessarily a correct statement, because we see the work every month, the invoices, the customers, the adoption, it's there. It's just that it's taking a lot longer than typically it would take in the programs. Work is happening, and the pipelines are hugely robust. So what may seem like before, when we may be able to serve a customer in a much shorter amount of time, it is taking longer. But also understand that some of these jobs, even when they do move forward, they can take months from initiation to completion. For example, if a home needs a roof repair, vermiculite remediation, mold remediation, or knob and tube wiring, that all has to be done before we can even get to doing the weatherization component or the HVAC systems. And these things can, in and of themselves, take a bit of time to get done. So I think the statement that work isn't getting done is not entirely correct, because we do see the work that is being done, on a regular basis.
Okay, but in our area, it really isn't getting done. That's the feedback I have from it. But okay.
Well, yeah, if you can put, no, I mean, we're happy to take that feedback. If you have specific things that you can reach out to us on with specific customers, we're happy to try to find out what's happening with those customers.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
And please do that, because it's hard to impact or be able to correct anything if we don't have something concrete to go by.
Okay. Can you put your email in the chat?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think it might be at the end of the presentation as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Yeah. Susan, question from you.
Good. Thank you, Nathan. Mike, thanks for this. I worked with the Community First Partnership for the last 3 years, and I'm still working to a lesser degree in the same field in Springfield and Pittsfield. And we have been, we're working really hard. This is following up with what Lisa was saying, to get people signed up for an energy audit. And they would be canceled left, right, and center. We had worked a lot with a home performance contractor who, till recently, was really good at getting someone in within a few weeks and doing the work within a few weeks. Now I understand that we've been given a letter from Mass Save for the Community First Partnership programs, which were set up to serve income eligible families. And now they're telling us don't even approach them, go to moderate income or landlords or businesses because we're so backed up. And I'm wondering, I understand these are crazy times and there's a lot going on and money is an issue, and I get that. But I wondered if Mass Save was doing anything for these low-income families who won't be helped for this winter, whether it's do-it-yourself weatherization workshops or some kind, I mean, we're trying to organize it ourselves, but it would be great to have the support of Mass Save to help people who are not going to be served. And they're certainly not going to get heat pumps this winter if they're income eligible. And they may not even get their insulation or their audit, but it would be great to offer some kind of do-it-yourself courses so that people get some resources to get through the winter. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate that. And I think that the kind of a couple of things to consider. So for folks that are, again, as I mentioned, there's already a pretty robust pipeline for the program. So anyone that's entering now is also subject to that queue that currently exists. So one of the things that we are doing is when we have, as I mentioned before, like say a 6 to 8 week time frame before a customer is even reached out to be able to schedule a time for assessment. But then at that time, they're being offered, at least through the National Grid component, whether they want to wait for a full assessment or have an energy specialist go out to address the appliance components first, so that there's at least something that we could potentially do for the customer while we're waiting to be able to get the assessment for weatherization and heating systems. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that there's a lot of interest in the program. The programs have to be very mindful of the budget and the delivery, and there's a large queue. So that in and of itself, whether it's a home performance contractor or whether it's a community action partnership, it doesn't change the level of the queue that we have and the level of interest in the program. So we try to serve customers essentially, on a, I want to say a first come first served basis to a degree, but there's also priorities that are given in the process. Like for example, the community action agencies, it can be anything from heavy health and safety issues, no heats, elderly or infant, occupations in the properties. There's a lot of different kind of triage type things that happen as well. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge for community first partnerships. It's a challenge for the programs in general. Unfortunately, we would love to serve everyone at the same time, but that's just a difficult reality that we can't serve everyone at the same time. So we're trying to serve people as quickly as possible, stay within the budgets that we have, and be able to serve as many people as we can.
I do want to just say too, if I can, one of the things that we've been doing is like working with marketing to come up with different energy saving tips, brochures, and things that can be made available to customers on the website. We have worked with we have a language access plan to get different languages, and so we can have the tips available in multiple languages if people are looking for ways that they can do some like do it yourself energy saving while they're waiting to get an assessment or waiting to get upgrades. I know it's not the same as having someone come and upgrade their heating system, but we're really trying to, provide different resources for customers in the meantime. So I did want to just mention that.
No, that's very, thank you, Nicole, for that. And the other thing to mention too is that we are constantly looking for any additional funding that may be able to be braided with the programs. So that's something that, we understand the situation that's currently happening, and we want to kind of look in every direction to see what we're able to bring into the programs to be able to serve more customers. And that's just want folks to know that is, excuse me, a constant of what we're trying to do and to help assist in serving more of these customers and shortening the amount of time that it's taking to serve them.
And if I can just jump in here, Mike, about the Community First Partnership, I've worked until recently, very recently, I worked a lot in that program. And it's not there just to serve the income eligible population. Really, it's to serve hard to reach populations. So that includes renters and landlords, languages other than English, and things like that. So I think that's where the directive is coming from, because, and moderate income as well, because those programs are less of a weight, and we still want to reach those hard to reach populations. It is a really tricky time right now for outreach, though, and I applaud every one of you who is out there communicating and doing outreach.
Thanks.
Okay, good. So I see we do have one more question, but Karen, can you hold your question until we've finished the presentation, and then there'll probably be some more questions. So Mike, I'm going to have you just continue, because I know you still have a few more slides to go, and then Karen, if you could just hold your question until the end.
Sure, thank you. And I think Nicole was going to talk a little bit about the multifamily buildings.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be brief on multifamily, but really a lot of the things that Mike had said about how our program works for the single family, it's similar for multifamily. We work with our lead vendors, and they deliver energy assessments for buildings that have 5+ units, where 50% or more of the tenants are income eligible. They are able to serve that entire building with an assessment, and then they go through and see, what the needs are. If it's I don't have a slide for this on the exact measures, but it's really the same as we have in the single family side, as far as, they do air sealing and insulation and weatherization, where they can. They'll replace any of the aerators and faucets, and put in low flow shower heads, lighting, all of those types of improvements that they can do. And then they'll also, if it's an eligible building where there's a need for an upgraded heating system, they'll replace the heating system for the whole building. So our multifamily building projects typically are a lot more expensive than the single family, just because they're serving a lot of, and in some cases we have large multifamily buildings where there's dozens to hundreds of units in these buildings, and they're doing big upgrades. But it's no cost to the end user customer. And for the multifamily program, we primarily work directly with the building management companies, and or in smaller multifamily, it may be with the landlord directly. If you want to go to the next slide. And so in the multifamily program, we have sort of our standard pathway, which I just described, and then we also have a deep energy retrofit pathway. This is new as of a couple of years ago, and it's something that we sort of modeled off of in offering in our CNI programs and our commercial and industrial programs, where qualified income eligible multifamily buildings that are undergoing significant upgrades, where they would reach at least a 40% reduction in their energy use intensity, can go through this DER pathway. And there are some conditions for this where, it needs to include electrification of fossil fuels. There needs to be significant weatherization and ventilation improvements as part of this, these upgrades. Typically, these projects are multi-year, and really also involve a lot of additional capital investments and improvements. The incentive for these is it's done differently than our standard pathway, where there's a $350 per MMBTU of savings. That is what the incentive is based on, and that savings is based on technical modeling that's done, and it's basically estimated what the savings will be once all of the upgrades are done and completed, and then we will calculate the incentive off of that. I will say for National Grid right now, we have a full pipeline of deep energy retrofit projects already in our queue, and so we are only accepting applications for those that are expressing interest in the program. And then if we have openings of additional funding over the next term, then we'll be able to reach out to those that have expressed interest and get an actual application going. And I think that may be it for my slides. I did put up here, so if you want to know how to actually apply or, get information, or someone might be interested in going through any of these income eligible programs, this is where they would find that information. For the single family program, it would be through masslean.org, and the phone number's on there. And then for multifamily, it would be through leanmultifamily.org. And then additionally, if a customer is interested in reaching out to their CAP agency, either for getting an energy assessment, or if they're interested in fuel assistance or any other of the offerings through the CAP agencies, if you call that number, you can get directed to your CAP agency that serves your area. And I think with that, we can open it up for any additional questions.
Yeah, questions. Okay, Karen, I'll take your question now.
So my question is about funding. And first, I want to thank you, Mike and Nicole, for, you obviously really care about these programs. My question comes out of an article that was in the Boston Globe on October 1st, which basically said that your programs have been so successful that the money has kind of run out really quickly. And so, hooray for the success. But like the article said that in a sense, you guys are threading the needle between the money that the governor and state agencies are willing to allocate to Mass Save, and then the fact that our ratepayers are funding Mass Save, and people last winter sort of freaked out. And so my question is about funding, and I apologize because this is slightly political, but do you guys talk about other ways that Mass Save could be funded? Like the governor forwarded a plan back in the spring where Mass Save would not be funded through utility ratepayer fees. And you might not feel comfortable responding to this, but I just wonder, because you guys are inside the storm, if you have any thoughts on it.
So, one of the things, and I alluded to a little bit before, I just want to answer in two parts. So, we're in the first year of a 3-year term. So with the energy efficiency plans, essentially it's every 3 years. So we have, we plan for delivery of services across a 3-year period. And then when that is over, or like kind of in the midst of that, like as we get to the middle towards the latter part, we're planning for the next 3-year term. Budgets have increased significantly from the last term, but so has the interest in the programs. So we're trying to manage and keep the programs active throughout the 3 years, and constantly adjusting policies and guidelines that will allow us to serve more customers and be able to get to them as quickly as possible, even considering the queues that we have. And in the process of the funding that's available through the energy efficiency plan, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at potential either state or federal funding that may be available to the programs as well, through our external stakeholders, and whether that be the DOER or whatnot, where we're looking to see like what can be utilized to the programs. And some of that is still in flux as we're trying to flush some of those components out. But if some of them come through, it'll allow us to serve more customers, essentially braiding it with our funding that currently exists through the plan. So we're very passionate, as you are, which we appreciate, like all the kind of the passion with everybody that's on the phone, and all the cool things that are happening in this space. And hopefully you can tell that we're very passionate as well, that we want to serve as many customers as possible and in the best way possible. And the things that we offer to the customers in the program, it's pretty amazing when you see what an individual customer can receive. But that said, those are also pretty significant projects per home. So as we try to kind of navigate these floodwaters as we go through this, the intent is to be able to continue the program moving throughout the 3-year plan, see what additional funding is possible, and also continue to consider, what we can shift and or alter or change within the program as we're moving along that allow us to move and serve more customers. And that can go anywhere from particular cost reductions per measure or guidelines that indicate, what type of barriers we can remediate in order to allow for more adoption with the majority of the customers or that type of thing. There's a lot of things at play that we try to work through. So I don't know if that specifically answers the funding question, because some of the kind of the political components around the funding question, we may not be able to really get into or even are privy to knowing all the details on. However, we do know that we are always seeking external funding if possible. And that's something that we hope some of it may be down the horizon where it'll give a significant boost to the programs. But these budgets, even in and of themselves, are, if you were to go back to, energy efficiency plans, say 2 or 3 plans ago, and look at the budgets and look at where they are now, they've significantly increased. But again, the interest has as well, as has all the kind of the positive things that have happened to try to get more customers on the discount rate, which even getting customers on the discount rate, the change in, they can save, I think it's 32% at minimum on their electric bill and 25% on their gas bill just by being on the discount rate. So but that's also an enabler to the energy efficiency services, but that's a huge component. But if you think about it, you get more people on the discount rate, which is more people that have access to the program, which increases the queue of the program if the customers are interested in participating. So there's a lot of really positive things that we're doing to try to get more customers involved, but it also builds a bigger queue at the same time. It's kind of the perfect storm in a positive way, and we're trying to be as positive as we can about it. But unfortunately, the budgets are not infinite. And as I mentioned before, we can't serve everyone at the same time, even if we want to. It's really difficult to do that just from an overall, resource perspective, from contractors to funding to like so many components that are involved. But we do promise to continue to try to access any available funding that's there, even beyond what's in the plan for our, in the energy efficiency plan, that is, and look for ways to be able to get to more customers. And hopefully that answers some of the components, but it's an interesting space that we're in right now, and it's very different than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I mean, we are almost out of time. So I just want to say thank you to our speakers, to Mike, to Nicole, and to Emily for joining us. We just have a couple more minutes. So I just want to offer up the opportunity for anybody who wants to make an announcement and or ask a question. We're not going to have a chance for a conversation, but I do want to I always like to at the end give people a chance to raise any concerns or questions and have and get responses if there are somebody who could offer a response. So yes, Alex, question or comment just before we wrap?
Yes, so I just wanted to I guess this isn't the church, so I won't say thoughts and prayers, but just good vibes I'm requesting as Milton has a town meeting next week where we'll be voting on an article to adopt emission goals aligned with the states. So we're a few years behind the leaders, but I would really hope that that will work out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, no, thanks. Well, yeah, best wishes for all of you who will be presenting and have been advocating for this. So good work, Alex. Yeah, Fred.
Thank you. I just want to announce that this coming Monday, I'll be putting on a training MCAN program. It's something that I mentioned quite some months ago at a MassEnergize meeting like this, and it's finally coming around. So it's this coming Monday. I'm putting the note into the link into the chat, and I'll add a little title to it. It's a training for folks. It's sort of a follow-up to what we were discussing earlier, to do what's called decarbonizers program in your locality, peer-to-peer program. So it's a new orientation. It very much comes from work that MassEnergize has done over the years. And if people are interested, just click on the link and you see a little bit about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Fred. Yes, Emily.
Hi, I just wanted to mention a little plug because it's my program about the multifamily program. Don't sleep on the multifamily program. It's a little more but they are very much a population that is hard to reach, hard to find those landlords. And so you all there on the ground in the towns, if you can find those landlords, particularly of 5 to 20 unit buildings, that's a lot of, and if we can serve one of those buildings, that's a lot of bang for your buck. And that's a really hard to reach population. So a plug for multifamily.
Okay, good. Okay, I think we just have like one more minute. I don't see any more questions, so I just want to say thank you all for sticking with us till the end. We had some really good conversations, really good presentations. Next month, we will be having our community practice meeting on the second Monday. You know that there is obviously Thanksgiving is going to be there, so we had it later this month because of Indigenous Peoples Day. But Joe, do you have the date for that? What's the date of the November community practice meeting? Looks like, is it the 10th?
It is November 10th, yes.
November 10th. Okay, thanks, Susan. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so we hope to see you all on November 10th. You will be getting some follow-up. If you've registered, you'll be getting some follow-up material from us with some of the slides and presentations. But again, thank you all, and thank you for the good work you're doing. And with that, we're over and out for the October community practice meeting.